That time of the week again. One Piece. One Piece. One per episode review. Now, this week's episode is episode 688, A Desperate Situation. Luffy gets caught in a trap. At the at the Palace Hills, Luffy is still riding Uzi towards the palace, but was dejected to see that the rest of the Colosseum fighters are ahead of him in the race to fight Doflamingo. After a little help from Funk Brothers pointing out a shortcut, Luffy and Uzi enter a tunnel. Before and the two guys, I think it was Jet and Abdul, who were riding with them, get knocked off at the entrance to the tunnel. While inside, Law warns Luffy that facing Doflamingo while he is still handcuffed will be suicide. A call from Robin solves that issue as she is sending Rebecca, Bartolomeo are delivering the handcuff keys to them. At the plateau, Bartolomeo, Robin, and Rebecca are taking an unorthodox method of traveling to the Palace Hills flower field by jumping through the use of beetles provided by Leo. Back in the tunnel, the two captains find themselves in a dead end and are surprised to see that Doflamingo arrives waiting for them. So, very simple episode. Once again, One Piece pacing is, One Piece pacing. Luffy is desperate to get to Doflamingo quickly, and once he sees that the other Colosseum fighters have not only caught up but are seemingly starting to get ahead of him, he just decides to take. It's not that hard, or he's very disappointed. And then when the Funk Brothers are like, "Oh, we know of a shortcut that can get you right there immediately." Well, unfortunately, so he's like, "All right, let's do it." But then, so then he quickly takes that opportunity, thinking, "All right, cool." Now, of course, and then the whole thing about Law is like, "Oh well, it's gonna be suicide if I try and face Doflamingo while handcuffed." And thankfully, the Plateau group found it and are now on their way. That scene was kind of fun. It was kind of weird how they animated the whole scene with the Beatles arriving, because you see the Tontada smiling and the other groups surprised at the mode of transportation that they're going to use before the Beatles even show up on screen, because it looks like they see them, but they're not even on screen yet. And then it was funny because they're kind of using them as balloons to, they jump down from the plateau, and they use that as a way of slowing, kind of like a parachute almost. When they're going down, to slow down their descent so that way they can safely touch down on the top of buildings. And then they push off the buildings, and then they provide us a slight helicopter boost to make that jump go even higher than they normally would. And then once again, so that way they can move forward as they slowly descend, and eventually that's going to get them to the palace. So overall, the episode had some, couple of funny moments. I mean, you see Zoro facing off against some more Zoro versus Pika. So, it's definitely going to be interesting to see, how they animate certain things that are coming up. We got next week's episode is A Great Escape, Luffy's Tide Turning Elephant Gun. Then we have A United Front, Luffy's breakthrough towards victory, followed by The Second Samurai, Evening Shower, Kanjiro appears. So, for all those who've been wondering, anime-only viewers have been wondering what Kanjiro looks like, well, you saw him in the opening, but you might not necessarily recognize him, since you haven't seen him in the show, but he'll make his debut in the anime outside of the opening in that episode. And then the last episode that they have titled at this point comes out May 10th, which I believe would probably be Mother's Day, I think. and it's the struggle with Pika, Zoro's one finishing move. Now, if you've been paying attention to my reviews, you would have known that I've warned you that this fight recently, and when I mean recently, like, I think it was either last month. It was only just last month that the Zoro versus Pika fight finished. So the fact that this, that title is kind of misleading as to anime-only viewers because they think, oh wow, Zoro's going to beat Pika in that episode. No, he does a very powerful move, but doesn't finish. So overall, the episode was okay. There was some funny moments, and some action wasn't very too. There wasn't really much action, even though there was a bit of fighting in this episode. It wasn't really any main character. Luffy wasn't fighting, and the Zoro Pika fight we were seeing was only a little bit. But it's unfortunate because we also haven't seen much towards we didn't see any more of the Sabo versus Fujitora fight, which is unfortunate because it didn't really not much really happened in the manga. With that, we didn't get to see much of the fight in the manga, so I'm hoping that they're going to extend the scenes that we do see of them, longer, or just straight up adding filler scenes, adding entire parts to the fight that are filler, but they didn't really. They slightly extended the, three-way battle between Doflamingo, Law, and Fujitora, which was also extremely short and almost non-existent in the manga. Shown in the manga, I mean. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how things pan out and how they animate it. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this review, and hope to see you guys next week.